All right, so this first one says simplify the following I to the 312th. So what I'm going to do is break this up into powers of 4. Okay, so let's see. This is number 1. I to the 312th. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is break this down into powers of 4, like I said. Well, 300 is divisible by 4, so I'm just going to break this down into I to the 300th times I to the 12th. These are both actually divisible by 4. So this right here ends up being 1, and this is divisible by 4 as well, so that's 1. So it's just going to be 1 times 1. So your final answer for this one is just going to be 1. All right, so it is also important to check this on your calculator. So if you need a review of how to do that, I'll show you really quick. So we're going to do I, so second decimal place, to the 312th power, and then you hit enter. Okay, I'm going to screenshot this just so I can write on it. But one important consideration that you have to take when you use your calculator for these problems is that there is a counting error in the calculator. And basically what it does is it ends up counting this part, which really shouldn't be counted. 1.2 times 10 to the negative 12th, that's what that represents there, is a super tiny number. So for all intents and purposes, all you have to do is just ignore this. Okay, and then you're left with the answer as 1. So you can kind of check your work. Make sure you still show work though, because that's what's going to be graded. All right, number 2. So we got 5 minus 3i over 2 plus 6i. All right, you can't have I on the bottom. So the first thing you're going to need to do is multiply by the conjugate. So it's going to be 2 minus 6i on the top and the bottom. All right, so from here, I'm going to multiply the top part out. Let me highlight this. I'm going to multiply this top part out here by gridding it out. So I'm going to do that real quick. And then 2 minus 6i. All right, fill this in. This is 10. This is negative 6i. This is negative 30i. And this is 18i squared. Okay. This is going to simplify to 10 minus 36i plus 18i squared. Well, I squared is equal to negative 1. So it's just going to be 10 minus 36i minus 18, because this right here again is equal to negative 1. So it's negative 1 times 18, negative 18. And then you simplify this out, it ends up being 10 minus 18. So you do negative 8 minus 36i. So that's the numerator over here. So negative 8 minus 36i. Okay, divided by, now when you multiply conjugates, if you remember, the shortcut for this is you square the first one, and then you square the second one, and you subtract the 2. So that's what I did right there. I squared the 2, it's a 4, squared the 6i squared, and you got 36i squared, and it's got to be negative. And from here, you just simplify that bottom part. So it's going to be 4 minus negative 36, because again, I squared is equal to negative 1. And then let's do this. We'll do plus plus. So you end up with negative 8 minus 36i over 40. Okay. And you can see that the top and the bottom are both divisible by 4. So I'm going to divide the top by 4, as you get negative 2 minus 9i over 10. That would be your final answer. It is important to check this on the calculator as well. If you just put the original part in there, what's written in black right here, in the calculator and hit enter, it should spit that out. So let's do that real quick. So it's going to be 5 minus 3i divided by 2 plus 6i. And then you just hit enter. So that's 0.2. So that's just 2 over 10. And then 0.9 is 9 over 10. If you wanted, you can just do math frac on this as well. And it's negative 1/5 minus 9/10 I. So you could do it that way as well. We kind of talked about this a little bit ago. But you could do the negative 2 divided by 10. minus the 9i divided by 10. And then you simplify the negative 2 over 10 to be negative 1/5 minus 9/10 I. Either of these would be the right answer, what I'm highlighting here. That works, or this one works as well. It's number 3. We got to solve that out. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is actually put it in standard form. So it's going to be x squared minus 4x plus 7 is equal to 0. And then from here, I'm going to use quadratic formula. Because it's set equal to 0, you can do that. So it's going to be x is equal to negative b, which is negative 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 16, minus 4ac, 4ac, which is 28. And then we're dividing all this by 2. Okay, from here, I'm going to simplify everything. So it's going to be 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 12 all over 2. Okay, we do need to break down that negative 12. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do that over here. So square root of negative 12 is going to be I times the square root of 12. To break down the square root of 12, just think of what perfect squares are in there. Or even if you don't want to do perfect squares, you can just break it down each number at a time. So divide it by 2, root 2 times 6, break down the root 6 to root 2 and root 3. Okay. Now, root 2 times root 2 is just going to be 2. So the breakdown for this would just be, it'd be 2i times root 3, or 2 root 3i, it doesn't really matter the order. So what I'm going to do is basically write this back up in here only by simplifying it. So it's going to be 4 plus or minus 2i root 3 over 2. We're going to divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. So it's going to be 2 plus or minus I root 3, all divided by 1, which I'm not going to do divided by 1 there. And you end up with the answer right there. And you should have 2 answers, which it shows there, because the power up here is 2. I'm also going to show you how to check your work on this, on your calculator. So check this out. So you can do 2 plus I times the square root of 3. And I'm going to store this in for x. So I'm going to say that's my x. And what you can do is just rewrite the original problem, this part right here, with x, and you should get a 0. And if you get a 0, that means you have the right answer. So I'm going to write x squared minus 4x plus 7. So I should enter on this, and it should spit out a 0. So then we know we got the right answer. If you want, you could check both of them. You can do the 2 plus and the 2 minus I root 3. But if one of them works, automatically the other one will work. So you never have to check both. But just say you wanted to for fun. I'll just show you. 2 over the square root of 3 times I is x. So then if I did it again, you get 0. Okay. That's a way of just making sure you get the problems right each time, is checking it. Let's do 4. Well, what's great about 4 is I purposely picked the exact same expression that we just worked with. If you notice with 4, it's the same thing as this thing right here. So we know the solution is this right here in green. So all we have to do is do x minus that value with the plus. And then the same thing, only with the minus. And again, it doesn't matter where you put the I. I keep flip-flopping where I'm putting it. It doesn't really matter. And the last one is just quadratic structure. So we have x minus 3 times the square root of x plus 5 equals 0. All right, so what you should notice on this one, if you rewrite it, it ends up being x minus 3x to the 1/2 plus 5. So that means that that middle power doubles from here to here. It was 1/2 times 2 is 1. So that means we can use the substitution with the u to do the quadratic structure. So now the u is equal to the x to the 1/2 power. So now you can rewrite the equation to be u squared minus 3u plus 5 is equal to 0. From here, you can use quadratic formula. So it's going to be negative b, which is negative 3. So 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 20 all over 2. And this is going to end up being 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 11. And then that ends up being 3 plus or minus I root 11 all over 2 for your u. But we have to find the answer for this in terms of x. So I'm going to replace the u with x to the 1/2 power, and it's set equal to this 3 plus or minus root 11, forgot the I, divided by 2. To solve this, you just square both sides. So I'm going to square this, square this. This cancels, and you're left with x is equal to, I'm just going to say this is equal to x. I'm not going to try to actually break that down because it's going to take too long. So do not worry about that part. So your final answer is